Hi everyone, this is Jessica Shields, and this is discussion board 4, talking about depression in children and adolescents. So, some of the common signs and symptoms of depression in children and adolescents are lack of energy, mood swings, irritability, lack of interest in things that they normally do, like their chores or their extracurricular activities, lack of self-esteem, feelings of despair or guilt or hopelessness, abnormal eating patterns. It can be eating too much or not eating at all. Sleep disturbances. It could be where they're starting to get in fights at school and their grades are falling. There are many different signs and symptoms of depression in children. And I was reading, and I think it said 5% of children have depression nowadays, and it can come from many different factors. So some of the pathophysiological mechanisms that contribute to these signs and symptoms are somewhat unknown because the brain is so complex. But they say that it could be a combination of genetics, environmental, and biological factors. So usually genetics play a huge role, but not necessarily everyone in the family has to have depression for one child to get it. So it is very common for one child out of 3 kids to have depression and then the other 2 don't. So the brain is very complex, so it is hard to determine the pathophysiology. Some of the environmental factors could be chronic illnesses, any type of abuse or neglect, and loss of loved ones, like kids who lose their parents or a sibling or even a friend at school. It could hit them very strongly and they could become depressed. Some of the other factors I was reading about, it says depression is also associated with low levels of neurotransmitters such as norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine in the limbic system. So it could be an imbalance of any of those or all of those neurotransmitters in the limbic system that causes depression. It can also be caused by cortisol, and I was reading whenever cortisol levels are increased, then it mobilizes the body for stress situations, which decreases serotonin, which also stems from neurotransmitters. So sorry, I lost you there. And it also can be caused by hyperthyroidism. So that was some of the pathophysiology that I read, but there wasn't like a clear explanation of the pathophysiology of depression. So some of the pharmacotherapy that is used for management of depression are antidepressants, and they involve the modulation of neurotransmitter levels in the brain. Some of those are tricyclics, and they are known as TCAs, and they block the reuptake transport of the neurotransmitter norepi and serotonin. And by blocking those, it results in more neurotransmitters being available in the synaptic space, and that leads to an intensified action of the drug. Another one is called SSRI, which stands for selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and that pretty much works the same way as the TCAs, except it only blocks the reuptake of serotonin at the neuronal presynaptic membrane. Another one is the SNRI, and that is a serotonin norepi reuptake inhibitor. So that inhibits the presynaptic neuronal reuptake of both serotonin and norepi. So they all kind of work the same. They just work on different neurotransmitters in the brain. Another one, which is very rarely used because it has so many adverse effects, which they all do have a lot of adverse effects, but the MAOIs, they have a lot of adverse effects, and you can't eat a lot of foods because they interact with the MAOIs. But they work by binding irreversibly to MAO, which intensifies the actions of endogenous norepi, serotonin, and dopamine in the central nervous system. Increased concentrations of these neurotransmitters leads to an increase in mood. So it all stems from a decrease in the neurotransmitters, from what I gathered, because even if stress is a factor, it ultimately leads to a decrease in a neurotransmitter. And all of the medications that are prescribed for depression target the neurotransmitters. So even if it is a genetic factor or environmental factor, they still usually prescribe these medications that targets the neurotransmitters in the brain. And that's all I got. Thank you.